There have been National Guard deployments over the years that do help with fires. The National Interagency Fire Center has an agreement with the Department of Defense to provide firefighting help when our resources have been largely tapped out nationally with civilians. So right now, there are 200 firefighters from Fort Lewis in Washington State, and they are actually only about a half a mile from where I'm sitting right now. They're in a separate camp. We're serving all their needs from this one here too, and it doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether it's active Army or National Guard. Department of Defense will help arrange a lot of that stuff, so we are benefiting from their help right now, and they've been on the lines helping us.
Yeah, I have some pictures and video you sent me before that I'm going to show later in the video. It looked like a lot of busloads of help, which is great because again, I know that fire is a necessary part of the ecosystem, but it still breaks my heart that so much is burning all at once. Can't we just have like patches that burn and then they can kind of meet each other? And anyway, so I'm a civilian. I don't work for the National Forest. I don't work for CAL FIRE or any fire department. But does that mean that there's nothing I can do to help? Is there any sort of like certifications that I can take that would allow me to like haul hoses or Gatorade or something near the firefighters so that they don't have to drive all the way back into town to go get those supplies?
Okay, so there are emergency equipment rental agreements, and there are people that we actually can rent a pickup truck with a driver that it's got to be certified, mechanically in shape. Those are hired through our rental agreements, and those do occur. And I don't have the specifics on that, but we do have people that have a pickup truck here, and they work for our ground support, and they do deliver food and hoses and whatever else that is needed at a particular drop point. They do make those deliveries. We obviously use some of the government's own fleet, but we obviously outstrip that in a lot of cases. So we do have those in place. And I would tell you too that there's a caterer on this site right now that's feeding whatever we have left here. There's well over 800 people working on the incident right now, and the caterer hires people, and there are people out here that do a little bit of maintenance out here. We have maintenance contracts. We even have somebody that comes and cleans doorknobs because of the COVID situation. We want to make sure that we're not spreading anything around here. So there's a lot of different small contracts that are going on right now, and that is hired usually at pre-season on that stuff. But like when a caterer rolls into town, they hire local help. So there are people here probably from town that are working for this caterer right now.
Huh. So where would be a good place to start to find that information, though? Just right to the forest in general?
Yes, they would have that, and they can point you to how to get into a contracting situation. And I don't have the specifics for that, but we do hire some. Yes.
All right. So I think you alluded to this a little earlier, and forgive me, we've gone over a whole bunch of information, but what's the difference between a Type 1 and a Type 2 team?
Okay, so we actually have probably 5 levels of teams, 5 being the very smallest one. Sometimes that might just be an engine that goes out and takes care of 1/10 of an acre fire that's accessible, and they can go off and just get it done. Complexity is a little bit greater with Type 4. Type 3 is a little more organized, and when you talk about an incident commander and a team of a Type 3, they would typically have someone that would help with logistics, some planning. You'd have safety officer, division supervisors, and the span of control is still centralized in the incident commander. Now, with Type 2 and Type 1, the complexities go way up. And I have seen Type 2 incident commanders with 500 personnel. And that could include helicopters, bulldozers, engines, hand crews, some aircraft. But when you jump into Type 1, you're talking about, usually the complexity rises with if we had evacuations, if we had structures burned, if we had a serious, like a serious injury, even a fatality, if we have very high assets, high dollar assets instead of just trees, we have very high dollar assets that need to be protected. They'll bring in a type 1 team because of the complexities involved with it. And the complexities include where we have people stretched out. Like we have, I believe we have at least 5 spike camps on this fire. So when you're talking about logistics, getting people fed, they got to have a place to sleep, porta potties, water has to be delivered. As you were talking about before, hose. If they're using any kind of foam in their engines, stuff has to be delivered. So the logistical support can be ramped up at a very high level and be ramped down at a very high level. And I give you just a really fun example here. So we have a small information shop here at camp, and then we have a bigger one in town. But I've been here at the camp, and 2 nights ago, we were in this. It's a small Crocker box of a trailer, and the air conditioning went out. And so it's 111 degrees. You can't stay in that and run on a computer and do your obvious correspondence and putting out updates and such. So I got a hold of our facilities unit manager and I said, hey, we need to have this air conditioning looked at. We can't stay in this thing. And within hours, we made a determination that we can't use that trailer anymore. It's a rented piece of equipment. It's not ours anymore. We're not using it. It goes off the agreement. And they put up a yurt within hours with 2 air conditioners. And what was kind of fun was I had some of the public affairs people with the Army here with me working in that same trailer. And they were just amazed at how quick the logistical support came together. They were just like, wow, we didn't know that you could do that. And so when we're building a camp, there could be nothing. And then the next day you can have meals being prepared. There's places for us to produce maps. We have finance people that move in. I mean, the operation is very, very large with a type 1 incident. So it has to do with size, how many people are actually on the incident, and values at risk. And obviously, this is such a large incident, you can well imagine that it's a type 1 incident for sure. Type 2s are very effective, and I've worked on type 2 teams before too, and type 3s. They're all very effective in what they need to accomplish. The one thing that an incident commander has to realize is when the complexity goes up to a certain point, and we actually have a kind of a matrix type situation that shows you when you need to go up to the next level, and it's usually made in cooperation with the agency that is sponsoring there. In this case, largely the Forest Service here. They would make the request. They would look at a complexity analysis and say, okay, we've had a type 2, we need a type 1 on this now. And they order it through our National Interagency Fire Center. So once again, the blue team is one of 16 type 1 teams in the country, and we get an order to come. And these teams don't just do fire. Primarily in the South, a lot of the work that we do a lot of hurricane response. They've been type 1 teams at both sites, both of the 9/11 sites. When the shuttle, the space shuttle blew up and we had to recover parts from across 4 states, there were type 1 teams that ran the recovery operations for that, where I hate to use the word all hazard, but anything of a large national incident that requires the skills of operations planning and put all of the pieces together and able to function with a very large number of people, that is what the teams do. It just has to do with complexity and size when you're talking about type 2 versus type 1.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more, because once the type 2, is that correct, is on scene now?
The blue team is a type 1 team.
Okay, so since the Type 1 team came on, that's when I started noticing weather reports daily and sometimes twice daily. That's when I started noticing better coverage of the burn maps. And noticed that it wasn't long thereafter that they were actually saying, hey, we've started putting in particular places here with pins because you guys have been calling us and letting us know, and we've been adding it to the map. And if you didn't call us, we wouldn't know. So they actually encourage people to let them know what they're curious about. And it seems like you're doing your best to balance. I know there's a whole lot of information of how's Little Baldy and how's Whole Mountain and how's all these different places. You can't cover them all.
Yes.
But if you can add some peace of mind for some properties to a few people, that's invaluable. I would think.
I will say one thing too, and just to toot our own horn, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked on both the red and the blue team from the south, and we do pride ourselves in being very community based. In other words, we do want to talk to people that are around us in the fire, and all sorts of media, including what we're doing right now. This is important to us because we know that when the fire is out, we leave, but we have to have relationships that are in good shape when we're done, and we don't want to have people have a bad taste in their mouth for what has occurred. We want to make sure that the people we serve, which are people that live out here, people that not only work for the agencies, but people that live and have private homes in and around the forest, they've got to be happy too. So we have, of course, a large contingent of information people. We have liaison officers that will deal with companies, utility companies, anything to do with some of the industrial aspects that might be sitting out there in and amongst the fire. We have all kinds of different ways that we work with people here. So we try to come in with a bit of humility, if I could say that, and we want to make sure that when we're done, people will say thank you, and most of the time that happens. So I hope that happens here too.
Yeah, so do we. So, am I to understand you guys don't just handle fires? You do hurricanes and other natural disasters too?
We do.
Hmm.
We do.
Okay, all right. But yeah, I just remembering you were talking about the tents and the AC units. I think there's a picture that got posted of the tents with the air conditioners sitting on tables in the windows.
That's my office.
Yeah, that. I mean, I'm in Windsor and it's not as hot as where you guys are, and it's still in the low 90s. I don't even want to know what it's like over there. What is the like over there? I didn't even ask you. I'm sorry about that.
So we've had temperatures up to 112 here in camp. It's been pretty hot. But yeah, anywhere where you got to have some kind of office space here, we'll build a yurt. We have some trailers out here, and for sleeping accommodations, I'm in a tent. And I will tell you, when I went to bed last night, it was 92 degrees, and believe me, I was hot.
God, yeah, I did see that. Also, you guys are sharing the bathrooms too. My Thank you for taking on the responsibility of doing it. I wish I could take some of the load off, but it's I guess with COVID and the lack of the training and the red cards and that, I really can't do anything but help inform the public.
That's a big service, though.
Yeah, well, it's not again. It's definitely a challenge. It's taken me quite a while, and I've had a lot of help to understand how to interpret all of this information that gets released. I understand the need for the specificity, but sometimes it can be extremely frustrating to like, okay, well, it says the M6, it says the M1, but are they open or closed or? So I will be going over that right away soon because it changed again. So this will be the third time. It's fine. Happy to do it because now I understand how to do it. And so I'll teach a man to fish and you feed him for a day. Give him a fish and or what is it? You give him a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for life. I'm going to teach you how to fish. Not necessarily you, Terry. So I got a strange question. I've heard rumor that fire retardant sometimes contains seeds. Is that ever true?
I saw that question in your list of questions, and that is an unfounded rumor.
Okay, all right.
It does not contain seeds.
Okay.
But it is largely when it lays upon the ground and eventually does soak into the ground, it is kind of a fertilizing agent, and things will grow pretty good there for a while because uh, the I'm sure there's some different elements that you would see in common fertilizer in those slurry loads. So, but no seeds, none that I know of.
Okay. I mean, it seems like a reasonable idea to put some in there. I mean, I also don't know what the stuff's composed of. Maybe it's just not conducive to seed growth whatsoever. I don't know. But
Well, you could probably get an MSDS sheet and you could find out that they exist. It's not a secret. Well, there are trade secrets out there, but I mean, chemical components can be known.
yeah, okay. They'll tell me the radioactive level and whatnot, and the health, and
Oh,
they won't tell me how much.
no radioactive stuff. Um, and all fire retardant is not all the same. There's some that we have a newer one called blue goo, and it will stay moist for even up to a couple weeks, and you can rehydrate it just simply by spraying water on it. But with the pink stuff that you typically see coming out of the aerial tankers, that stuff will stay wet for a while. It attaches to the vegetation, and I guess I need to make a point about this. It is not fire putter outer; it is fire retardant. So it slows the fire's growth. It does not put the fire out; it slows it. And I was pointing this out the other day to some of my other information people as I was coming out. I think it's California 166 from Willows into Stonyford, and there's a small fire there, and you could see where there's a pink strip of retardant that was dropped on that, and then you see a bulldozer line on the other side of that, and it's black from the dozer line to the pink, through the pink, and on the other side of the pink.
Hmm.
And it's evidence that there was, what it did is it bought time for the bulldozer to construct that line, get it in there, and then burn it out so that the fire stopped. So that the retardant actually buys you time.
So you mentioned another kind of retardant, though. In all my years in California, I've never seen anything but the orange pink stuff.
There's another one. I just call it blue goo. They can fly it with a helicopter bucket. They don't typically drop it out of the fixed wing tankers, but they can drop it with a bucket onto an area that needs to have a persistent fire barrier or something to slow the fire down. One place that I saw this was in Oregon about 3 years ago, and they had constructed a very wide fire line, and there were logs actually decked along these fire lines, and they were coating those logs with retardant so that if fire sparks came over that, they didn't become another source of something to burn. So they actually were able to drop it with a helicopter and then rehydrate it if it was not being used immediately in terms of being a fire barrier. So it's a little bit different kind of agent. Once again, it's biodegradable too, but you don't typically see that coming out of fixed wing aircraft. You'll see them coming out of a helicopter.
Maybe that's why we don't see a whole lot of helicopter drops, because they stay so low the whole time. And I'm right next to the airport, so they fly right across the house on my west, and then they come back on the east over here and land, or no, to the west they land and then fly by on the west. So I'm constantly seeing planes going by, but the helicopters seem to just find a spot to get water and go back and just back and forth, unlike the airplanes that seem to have to go back and land. So something that I've always wondered about, the effects of poison oak on the firefighters. I know if they touch it, and some of them are allergic, but what about on the smoke?
Oh yeah, that's a big problem, and I've personally experienced that more than once. Poison oak, poison ivy, same thing. It has the urushiol type oils that are secreted, and smoke is a very good way to convey that oil onto your skin. And I've seen hotshot crews with 4 or 5 or 6 members come down with it. They got to go into the doctor to get some kind of a steroid type of shot to get cured up, because it is bad. And for those who have sensitivity, which includes about 70% of the population, that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you either learn to identify it or avoid it, but when it's in smoke, it's pretty hard to avoid. And I will tell you that it can be pretty serious for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll bet it would be. Being around it out in the forest so much, I could spot it year round even without the leaves. But I've never experienced the burning. That just sounds terrible in so many ways.
You know, it's not just the leaves because the vines also carry the oil. If you cut into a vine and you get that juice on you, that is very potent with the stuff that you don't want to have on your skin. And
Yeah.
part of my career has been spent as a land surveyor, and I've gone through a lot of poison ivy and oak, and I have been covered with that stuff in the past. It's not fun.
No, it sounds terrible. So two other questions, generically speaking, about fires, not necessarily, not related specifically to Mendo Forest. Um, Curious about ladder fuels and what are those and how do they? I mean, what is it?
Okay, so it's jargon that the firefighters use and the fire behavior people use. So, you know, when you get a fire, it primarily starts on the ground. It can a lightning bolt can hit the ground and carry in grass very, very quickly. Fine grass is one of the most rapidly burning fuels we have. Needles are very fast too. So usually the fire starts somewhere on the ground, or it hits a snag, and that snag will throw sparks, and then it throws the sparks onto the grass, and then the grass starts to carry the fire. If you have no, if there's no fine fuels, a lot of times, unless you have extreme wind conditions, they're not going to go from, let's say, a pinyon juniper to another one without a lot of wind. You got to have some grass and other forbs on the ground. So ladder fuels. So let's say that you get into a very thick forest, young growth that's never been thinned, and you got these branches that drape down. Sometimes they're only inches off the ground, or some of them actually touch the ground, and they're caught on fire from the grass and the needles. Well, that is the ladder to go up and burn into the tops, and then you can get into a crown fire situation, which is a very very hard fire to stop. Once crown fires get going with wind, it's a tremendous amount of energy that's being expended out there. So really what we're talking about is the branches that go up a tree or a shrub that are in contact or close to the ground, and it allows it to go up into the tops of the trees.
Yeah, that sounds really, especially when you're talking about like in the forest where we've got these cliffs and these mountain ridges where, excuse me, the wind at the top of the mountain is going to be going one speed, but when it has to go up the mountain and keep the same airspeed, it'll go faster up the mountain and can carry it through those treetops really, really fast. We got really lucky where I'm at that the fire over here pretty much stayed on the ground the entire time. If you look at the burn area and then on the map and then physically look at it, you got green canopy still, lots and lots of it. We had almost no wind. I think we maybe hit like 12 miles an hour for a few minutes, but it wasn't very long at all. And so because of that, the fire just burned all of the undergrowth, the grass, the dead branches and leaves and all this and that. So that was kind of nice. It cleaned us up, but we still have the potential later on for that. I think you said crown fire?
That's when it's burning up in the tops of the trees. That's called a crown fire.
Yeah, okay. Um, so we've covered most of the questions I had for you. Um, I'm not sure if there's anything else you might want to allude to from the questions that I've already asked. We've cut. Go ahead.
Take some from your audience up there. If they have something, I could try to answer it.
Um, a lot of them were so far were about Covelo and its location and what was going on. But we directed that towards the burn map because I don't personally know that answer, and you don't. But I can give them the link, which is in the description. So if you want, if you're still watching and want to find that out, that would be the best place. I don't know, Terry, that you're, all due respect, the best person to be asking where it's going and what it's burnt and what it hasn't.
Yeah, let's leave that to the operations folks.
Yeah. So again, those links are in the description already, along with. So what do you use, Terry? Can I ask you what you use for checking burn area hotspots, so on and so forth? What's your favorite place?
To do the checking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a number of methods. Um, when you're really going on a to find out whether you've actually got a very cold line, we have handheld infrared detection equipment. There is another other piece of equipment called a probi. I haven't seen them used in recent times, but it uses argon gas, and it can. The guy that I saw operate this thing said he could see a burning cigarette from a quarter mile away with this. So it's extremely sensitive to heat, and you can only use it at night. After the sun has gone down, you got to have a couple hours
Uh-huh.
because you're looking to try to find fire on the ground, and it needs to be extinguished. The of course the aircraft, they're when they're using infrared aircraft, they're looking really for really big hot spots. That's where the fire is really traveling far. So that's the reason we use infrared aircraft. And we were just teaching the Army folks here that are brand new firefighters out here on the line. When they're doing mop up, uh, they're going in and looking. Sometimes you got to get down and dig and stuff, and you use the back of your hand, not the front of your hand, but the back of your hand, and take your glove off and just gingerly touch, and you feel what's out there to see if you actually have got the area cooled down. So that human touch is one of the ways we actually do it when you're getting down to the mop up stage. But we go all the way up to aircraft and other sophisticated handheld equipment. There's a lot of ways to detect the heat.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like we've got a lot of technology we can utilize these days. Out of my own curiosity as a drone pilot, are you using smaller drones at all? Like deployable ones that can, I mean, mine folds up into a backpack and it has a thermal imaging camera. No, you can't see a cigarette from a quarter mile away. But for localized environments, it seems like it would be a really handy way to just send it up real quick and look through the smoke for the hot spots and bring it back in. And I don't know.
There are some of those going on right now. Smaller ones are battery operated. Some of them have other types of engines on them, bigger batteries. Uh, but we're using all the above right now, and drones are getting more and more popular all the time. So, but some of them are limited by how much juice they're carrying, and so they can only do limited missions. But we do use them in a lot of different ways, including heat detection as well. So that like the dirty birds.
Yeah, they just seem like a valuable tool. Um, Terry, I know I'm going to have more questions for you again at some point soon, so I hope that I can invite you back on again. Like I said, I've been trying to generate questions that I'm seeing commonly on the Facebook posts to try and bring the most relevant information that people are asking that I can get a hold of. Again, I thank you greatly for your time. Oh, the last question, I almost forgot. Um, let's see here. Burned acres. They consider a burned acre or it a burned acre if it still has some living brush or trees on it, or does it have to be like clean?
No, inside of this entire 350,000 plus acres that's on the ground, there are green patches intermixed with black. Some places have a lot of black, but it is not 100% solid black inside the fire perimeter. There's a lot of green out there, a lot of trees that have burned all the way up into the tops, and some haven't. So you're going to get some trees that survive, some that will not. It's going to be a mix. And, when you're looking over time, 100 years from now, you see one or two trees that are just great big. Well, they might have been the survivor from a past fire in our time, and our grandchildren will see those great big trees and wonder why they were there. And there are reasons for it in some ways, but it doesn't have to be 100% burnt. There can be all kinds of mosaic burns out there where you got green and you got black mixed in there.
So it'd be more like the fire burned through that area, but it's not necessarily telling you if it was a 10% of the forest burned or the living material burned or 90% of it burned. It just the fire went through there. Is that my understanding?
Yes, and I will tell you this. I have worked long enough on fires to have seen the fire burn through, and in 2 weeks, I can see green grass poking up through the black.
Hmm.
So nature can really come back very quickly in some ways.
Yeah, I've since this most re the so this fire in the Mendocino kind of hit home to me. So I've started to learn about the benefits of the ecology or to the ecology after a forest fire. And one of the things I've been fascinated with is the serotiny the serotinous cones that open only after a fire or other environmental factor, whether it be heat or humidity. So I find it kind of fascinating. It's pretty interesting that, you look at this, the whole thing burned. Well, it's actually part of the life cycle. So I've mentioned it before, I think twice, that it's a sad necessity. It needs to happen. I just wish it would happen in smaller increments.
Totally, I'm sympathetic with you on that.
Yeah. Um, so what the hoping they were going to hear. At this point, Terry, if you want to jump off, I will say thank you, and I'm going to cover some of the closure maps and closure zones, and some of the other apps that I go ahead and use. If you want, you can stick around for those, but I know you've got a lot on your hands and
I do.
some air conditioning in that tent.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure being with you, and I hope we've imparted some information, and uh, we're glad to be serving here with that amount of humility, and see that this thing can come to an end sometime soon.
Well, thank you again. My hat's off to all of you for all the hard effort you're putting in. And hopefully, I can do my part to share some of this information, take a little bit of the load off your guys' shoulders so you can focus on getting the fire out. That's what's really important. So,
Well, thank you again. It was
no,
a pleasure to be with you.
thank you. I
Pleasure.
appreciate it. And I'll combine both these live streams, make them into one, and hopefully you can check it out and share it with your buddies. I don't know what you do with it.
Okay, we'll do it.
All right. Cheers, Terry. Thank you very much.
Good night.
All right. Good night. So some of the photos I wanted to show off that I found via Terry and via Facebook were these. I thought they were pretty interesting. I mean, they kind of tell you another story. We don't get to see this kind of stuff. This is Covelo today. That's Highway 162 FH7. But these guys are all out working hard. So many people walking through the forest looking for hotspots. That's Whole Mountain. This would be standing on the M6, I believe, looking at towards Whole Mountain. Again, we've got Covelo. I was just downloading every photo I could get that seemed kind of interesting to me, but these are just, to me, very compelling to look at. Here's the tents Terry was just talking about, so that's where he's sleeping. Air-conditioned tent, sharing the bathrooms. And my hat's off to those guys. I guess it looks like they're all getting brand new tools. It almost seems like the day's over, but it's not. They've got a lot more work to go. And I guess this is where they're using their hands, using the back of the hand to check for temperature, like Terry was just talking about. Man, just worry about that guy slipping. His leg's right there. That's Covelo at midday at like 3, 4 o'clock. Again, this is Whole Mountain. That's crazy what's going on. I watched a video. This is Covelo again from Willits at 3 p.m. It looked like it was 10 p.m. This is M1 right here and FH7. So that's the closure. Can't go in there. And that's it with that. So let me show you a few websites that I'm using. Get rid of this. Don't need that. So Windy is an awesome app. One thing I would show for the people over in Covelo is if you look at the Windy app, it's all going pretty slow, but if you look, this wind is coming from the east and heading towards Covelo area up in here. Let's move this map. A little more appropriate. Coming in from all different directions, just kind of socking you in with smoke. So everywhere there's a fire, you've got smoke building up. So anyway, this is a great website, link in the description. You can even scroll forward and look at, let's go Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m. You can see the winds. You can go Saturday. And it looks like it's all blowing back towards the east. So hopefully by Saturday, it's going to clear a bunch of that smoke out of there. Anyway, great website. I'd check it out. We talked about this one, the INCIWeb. If you want some information, there's some good information on here. Zoom in on their map and see the burn zones. Of course, it's going to take forever to load. But anyway, we got a whole bunch, so keep going. Cal Topo, though, this is a really good one. Let's see here. These are fires that are down by my area that are mostly out. But we're going to look up here in the forest. So these are obviously by far not even close to out. You can see all these different hotspots. We got Lake Pillsbury down in here. Let's see if we can find, where is Covelo? Oh, this looks like Round Valley right here to me. So, look at all this fire front, and if you can see the green lines, that's the direction the wind is heading. I don't know, I can't measure the distance. I don't see a legend that tells me how far an inch is. But I see the hotspots blowing towards that direction. I'd be a little nervous, at least be ready to pack, or be packed. And I've been hearing rumor that the 162 is closed at one end, and then FH7 is closed at the other end. So definitely do your homework and figure out how you're getting out if you are in Covelo or the surrounding area before it's too late, and then you're having to rush out, and then, oh, no. So anyway, here you go. Here's some of the fires up in the wilderness where they don't have the whole, they can't access it nearly as well. There's not nearly as many roads. It's a huge amount of hotspots. That's a very big fire. And then you have CAL FIRE. All the different fires listed. I think one of the ones I heard earlier was the Oak Fire. I believe that's the one over in Willits. Anyway, they're all here. CAL FIRE's got some information. They tell you when it was updated, containment. Good place for information. Also, the Mendocino National Forest website. This got longer today. A lot longer. So let's go over some of those. So I went in and started surfing the website until I saw these alerts and warnings come up and started clicking on them. So without further ado, let's check a couple out. So Regional Forest Order 0206 fire restrictions. That's as of today, September 8th, 2020. We can zoom in a little bit. So they talk about these different codes. You can copy this 35 CFR 261.5 A. You can copy and paste that into Google and actually see what that is and get the exact definition of that. So anyway, this one's talking about there's the as of September 7th at 5 p.m. Pacific time through September 14th, building, maintaining, attending, or using a fire, campfire, or stove fire. Not allowed. Smoking, not allowed. And again, you can click these, copy it into Google, and read the definition yourself if you want to. I clicked on a few of them just out of curiosity to see what they were like. Here's your exemptions. Other than this, the main part you want to see is the beginning and these first couple. The exemptions, not many of us are going to have those. And there is no real second, third, fourth page. Next, we got emergency recreation closure. So I believe that's the closure of the national forests. Yeah. So as of yesterday, 5 p.m. through September 14th, entering or using a developed recreation site, except trailheads in the national forest listed below. For purposes of this order, a developed recreation site includes campgrounds, day-use sites, boat launches, and related facilities. What it doesn't say here is dispersed camping is not allowed. So you can't use the boat launches, the day-use sites, campgrounds, or related facilities at El Dorado National Forest, Tahoe National Forest, Lake Tahoe Basin, Mendocino National Forest, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't say you can't disperse camp. But you can't have a fire at all. You can't, I think it said no stoves even. Let's see here. Or stove fire. So when I hear stove fire, I got two things. One of these the new propane stoves with the cement logs. That's what I think of when I hear campfire or stove fire. But I don't see cooking stove on here. So that would be the one that I obviously have to check in on. So within these different places, it's saying you can't use the day-use sites, campgrounds, but you can still go disperse camping. You can still enter the forest and use it for the day to go hang out. Not a problem, as long as you're not within the closure area. So, we've gone over this one. Let's go over the closure boundaries, Should be this one, closure as of September 5th. So according to their website, this is the most current one. So, let's see here. This order is effective from September 6th, 2020 through October 31st, Halloween 2020. Going into or being upon the August fire complex closure area, as shown in Exhibit A, described in Exhibit B. We'll go over that in a bit. Being in the National Forest System roads listed below, so the closed roads, you can't be on them. Any National Forest System road within the complex fire area closure, Forest Road number M1 from its intersection with Forest Road number 18N, November 16, to its intersection with M Mountain Highway 6, M6 road shown in Exhibit A. We'll go over those. There in Exhibit C is the exact definitions. We'll go over those here. Let's see here. I need to go back here. Monitor this, monitor that. It's all good though. Here we go. Turn that down. Oops. Okay, so there are exceptions for this FS 770048. I looked that up, and I'm pretty sure that was looked like logging, basically. And well, I'm not out there to log, so. Here's the map, which they did a great job this time again of posting a high-quality map. The first one that they listed was horrible. You couldn't read anything, whereas this one, when I zoom in, I can still read it. I love that. That makes things so much nicer. Let's see here. Let's scroll down because they're going to talk about closure boundary description starts here. So let's see if I can reopen that in another one though, so I can bounce back and forth without having to scroll back and forth. View all forest alerts. Where'd they go? Okay, there's too many there. Site map. Camping and cabins. That's the way I always go to find stuff. Closure, September 5th. There we go. So now I should be able to read from one and reference the other. So we've got the map open on the other tab. Here's our description of the closure area. Okay, so the boundary of the August Fire Complex closure area begins in the northeast corner of the Section 35, T19 and R6W, the intersection with the Mendocino National Forest boundary and Forest Road number 18 and 38. So let's go back to the map right here. 13 or 18 and 38. So they're talking about this is where it starts. Okay, so now I have a starting point. Let's see here. Then continues west along the north side of 18 and 38. West along the north side. So it continues west, but on the north side. So you can be on this road here, the 18 and 38, but you can't be north of it. So you can be on your car, get out, and go to the bathroom on the south side, but you can't go on the north side. That's technically closed. So let's keep going. Standing by. Yeah, they should have planes. They do have planes standing by at our local airport, but I don't know about the other ones. Sorry, Peter. But yeah, we do have some locally that are loaded all the time. Okay, along the north side, 18 to Forest Road number 18 N02. Then it continues west along the north side. So 18 N02 continues west along the north side. So you're allowed to be on 18 N02. You just can't go north. Step off the road on the north side. That's the closure boundary there. Let's continue reading. Let's see here. Then continues west along the north side to 18 N02 to the Cold Creek Trailhead. Then continues west along the north side. Okay. So same thing. Cold Creek Trailhead continues west along the north side. So you can be on these three roads so far. You just can't be on the north side of them. Okay, so we'll go back, read some more. This is where I start to get lost. Okay, where it intersects with Forest Trail 9W32, then continues northwest along the north side of the Forest Trail number 9W32. So once again, now we know it goes goes northwest along the north side. So let's see, how do I move over? It's heading northwest, but closed on the north side. So you can be on 9W32, you just can't be north of that one. So let's continue along. Let's see here. So 9W2 to Forest Road number M6 at Bloody Rock Trailhead, then continue south along the east side of the Forest Road M6. Back to map. Along the east side, let's see here, make sure I read this right. Continues, let's see, M1 continues south along the west side. Continue, let's see here, east side, south along the east side. Okay, so continue south, but on the east side. So technically, this is the east side. So the M6, that's closed and off limits. The M6 is off limits entirely. And we know those that you frequent this Lake Pillsbury area know the M6 M1 intersection. This is the game refuge entrance where you have those really big signs that say entering game refuge, no firearms allowed, and no OHV. That's M6. That's what heads up in there. When you head from Lake Pillsbury up Whole Mountain towards Covelo, it does that swooping, almost like more than 90-degree turn, but has a straight at it. That's that intersection right there. If you've been there. There's some good spots in the game refuge. I hope they make it or survive. Okay, so Forest Road M6 to where it intersects with Forest Road number M1, then continues north along the west side. Okay, so let's move up. Where is my cursor? There we go. So here's your M1 heading north on the west side. That means that the M1 here through here, so here's Whole Mountain, here's the M61, all this is off limits to us right now. It's all considered closed. So you can be over here, but you can't get there via the M1. You'd have to figure out an alternate route, and most of these are pretty much creeks. I don't really see much in there. So we're going to scroll up, scroll over, zoom out. Okay, so now I think it goes from 61. Then continues north along, let's see here, to where it intersects with M61. Then continues north along the west side of Forest Road M1. So they changed that from the last time. Because from the last one, this was along the east side. So you could be on the M1 in that section. They probably saw my live stream where I said you could circumvent that closed section and be on the M1. So they must have discovered that and updated that because that changed from east to west. So now from M61 on the M1 all the way to where the M1 intersects with the forest boundary, that's all closed. So let's go over in that section. So here's your M61. This time, I mean, they drew arrows too. I didn't even notice that. They've made things really obvious this time. This is great. Mendocino National Forest boundary, M61, M1. So they're talking about the forest boundary. Excuse me. Let's move. Let's see here. How do we move this? We scroll this way. I like maps I can just grab with the hand and kind of slide. Okay, so the M1, the forest boundary, and then follows the forest boundary. So the M1 leaves the boundary right in here, but it does come back in through right in here, and then again over in here is a little tiny spot. So when it said it was closed along the east side, that meant you could go all the way in through here, but you couldn't go along this little section here. And what I was saying in my previous live streams is if you took this little road over in here, which according to Google does exist, you could circumvent this little section and get in here on the M1, and you were legal to be in there until now. So now that's closed. I hope I didn't find my live stream and ruin it. Sorry about that. So then from there, let's see what we got. To where it intersects with the forest boundary of Six Rivers National Forest, then continues northeast along the forest boundary to its intersection with the boundary of Shasta Trinity National Forest, then continues eastward along the forest boundary to its intersection with the eastern forest boundary, then continues southward along the forest boundary and back to its starting point as shown in Exhibit A. So, basically, it follows the forest boundaries. So you got BLM over here, you can be over in here. Let's move up a little bit. Then this is where you got the Six Rivers National Forest, the forest boundary, Shasta Trinity, and basically it follows the Mendocino National Forest perimeter all the way around. All the way around. To where, so I'm scrolling fast because it just keeps going. Back to where it says closure boundary description starts here. So you're allowed to be in, can we zoom out? Is that the whole thing? That is the whole thing. You're allowed to be at Lake Pillsbury. You're actually, no, that's under no evacuation orders if I remember correctly. So that's not, that's part of the Sheriff's Department. Link to that in the description also, now that I think about it. They didn't mention in this one, but this part of the M1 is also off limits. They mentioned it in the previous one, but a lot of this got evacuation orders, I think it was last night. Check the link in the description. Also, the Mendocino National Forest website shared the Sheriff's Department's post about the new evacuation orders, so you can get them both from Mendocino National Forest Facebook page as of today. Get that information. Get it live. That one I haven't had time to decipher where those evacuation orders are. The map I did want to cover because I know there's a lot of people that are really missing hunting season. Can they go riding? Well, the answer is yes. Just outside of the closure area and evacuation areas, you can go in there. So south of Pillsbury, we still got all this. There's still a map below what you're seeing on the screen right here. It keeps going south down to almost to Clear Lake. So there's still a whole lot of forest we can utilize. I was just over, is it in here? Yeah, last weekend. We were at Mill Valley on, what was that, Saturday? We were in there. Fouts Springs, we were up in here. We went in Stony Ford, came in on the M10, checked out a few spots, came in through here. It was fun, really smoky, but we were allowed to be in there. Now the difference is you can't go into the campsites. So you'll have to find a spot to go disperse camping if you want to go near there. But when you're there, you can't go fishing and use the day use area because that's closed. So if you're going to go camping. But stay out of the day use areas, stay out of the campgrounds, they're all closed. And it's a $5,000 fine, so you don't want that. That's an expensive camping trip. But note that if you need to get away for the day and you want to go out in the forest, you can go into these sections that are not closed. So I just gave you the boundary area. Let me go back to here to where I can see what's going on. I haven't seen the chat here in a bit. Oakhurst, they're saying that we are about to be evacuated. Whoa. Ronnie P. I got evacuated from Bass Lake and I'm in the hotel at Oakhurst. Now they're saying we're about to be evacuated from here. Wow. I'm beside myself. Not really sure what to say. I've been evacuated once. I think it was last year in the Cascade Fire, and we didn't get evacuated a second time, but I can't imagine doing it a second time. That's terrible. Do you know where you're going to head, Ronnie? Anyway, without further ado, it's been a long night of trials and tribulations of learning this OBS. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the questions. I thank you for tuning in. If you found any of this content to be good, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like button. Comments are welcomed and loved. Try to do this every Tuesday and Thursday night. I'm pretty darn consistent. So hopefully we'll get Terry back on with some more questions. If you have some questions that you think would be good to ask him, you can find me on Facebook. Go ahead, send me a message. I'll write them down. Bluebeard Adventures on Facebook is a group that I started so that we can all stay in touch. Mostly this channel is about dispersed camping and enjoying the Mendocino National Forest and visiting the Mendocino National Forest. But because of the fires going on, I can't really bring a whole lot of that content to you. So I'm bringing these live streams to bring you content that's relevant to right now. So yeah, be safe out there, everybody. Thanks for all your help, and hope to see you again on Thursday night. Cheers.